Trent Gagnon actually just posted a closing photo yesterday. I don't know if you saw it, but he was jumping with his clients like midair in the photo. And I'm like, that's the kind of closing you want.
Yes.
To be jumping for joy, like in the photo. That's a good closing. That's a happy transaction, happy client, happy agent, all around.
Welcome back to the Modern Agent Podcast. My name is Logan Ricchetti with Modern Realty. This podcast is a combination of thoughts and opinions on the real estate market in Midland, Michigan with our local real estate agents from Modern Realty. Our mission is to create informed and confident buyer and seller clients, so tune in to learn more about Midland's real estate market.
Welcome back to the Modern Agent Podcast. My name's Rob Zientek, and we'll be your host today. And along my side will be Miss Eryn Travis, who is a fellow Modern Realty agent. And Miss Travis, is so awesome to have you here today.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Yeah. So something I just kind of want to chat about, and you and I, we talk a lot about in the office, some things, and I know a lot about you already. But can you kind of tell us, how did you get into real estate and how are you here now?
How am I here? Okay, so I used to sell cell phones at Verizon in Midland, and I had a wonderful client walk in one time, and his name was Kevin Crampton. And he walked in and he said, I need a cell phone. And he was telling me all about real estate. And while we were talking about phones, he said, do you want to buy or sell a house? And I said, actually, I do need to buy a house. And so Kevin helped me find my home and purchase my first home. And then shortly after that, he referred Logan Ricchetti, his broker, to come buy a phone with me. And while I was helping Logan Ricchetti find the right phone, he said, hey, you should probably sell houses because you'd be really good at it. And I said, what? And then he finished the purchase. And while he was sitting in the parking lot of Verizon, looking through the glass door, he friend requested me on Facebook, and he just stared at me until I accepted it. And then I accepted it. And long story short, I got my license. Loved it ever since.
So one of the things that come about with this is that with the licensing, and a lot of people talk about real estate license, the difficulty of it and the process. And I guess what I have for you is you studied, you passed the exam, you did everything. Then what? How real did that get you for what this was going to lead to?
That was a very intense time in my life because I was still working at Verizon, and I was taking the course at night after work, trying to get through the course, and then I had to take the state exam. And I wasn't sure if I would be able to just quit my job and be a realtor. As a family, you have to financially support that kind of thing. But it was very, very intense. But when I passed my exam, I had interviewed with Modern Realty prior, and I was pretty sure that's where I was going to go. But I did call around to a few brokerages, but I ended up with Modern. They just offered a lot more for someone who came from nowhere in the real estate game. I was not in finance. I was not in lending. I was not in anything that could have translated me into real estate smoothly. No title work, nothing like that. So I was starting from somebody basically walking off the street, and Modern Realty just offered so much value in the idea of training and teaching and understanding and mentorship. And that was what sold it for me. That's how I ended up here. 9 years later, still absolutely love the company. And I actually mentor agents too, if they need it. So I love the company and what it stands for.
So with the mentoring and kind of looking back with the time you've been there, what is something that Eryn Travis today would go back to Eryn Travis then and say, hey, do this or keep an eye on this thing? Is there something like just top of your head that kind of hits you and you're like, yeah.
Yeah. I wish that I would have slowed down and not panicked as much. I got my real estate license when I was 21. So I was very young, and just naturally at 21, you are full of energy and you're running 1,000 miles an hour, and you forget that it's just not that serious and that you don't have to freak out. And taking a deep breath helps you be more prepared for each situation individually. And it also gives that calming sense to my clients. I feel like there were times, not that my clients didn't trust me, but there were times that I felt like I was more panicked than my clients were, and it showed. And that might have just been me being younger, or just my personality, because I'm very bubbly and charismatic and a little bit all over the place. But I wish that I could tell myself to just like take a deep breath and like maintain that calmer sense to help my clients.
Well, and it's funny you bring that up, because something that I have to do even with myself is pause, because there are situations that come back, and it could be the inspection or just something that pops up, or you're in a negotiation situation and you want to win, because you want to do what's best for your clients all the time. And you have so much passion for them and what they want.
Yeah.
And that you're like, hey, I'm driving this ship. I am the pilot of this plane. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we just got to pause and take a breath.
Yeah. Sometimes I like to use the analogy of riding in a car. And as much as I like to tell my clients, like, the ultimate decision is yours, I remind myself that I'm driving. Mm-hmm. They're not driving because they don't know how to drive, because I'm a real estate agent. They're not the real estate agent. They're holding the map, and they can decide whether we get on the highway or we go the back roads. They decide how fast we're going to get to our destination. But I'm driving. I'm the one in the vehicle, and I'm the one who's making the turns and doing things safely throughout the transaction to protect them and to keep them safe and all of their what's important to them.
Yeah, you're not going to give usually a new driver the keys to a Maserati,
right? Exactly. You gotta reel it in a little. You have to make sure that they're safe, and that they have a good experience even. So something else, when you first started and as it's going along, we do talk about like buyers and seller clients. And when you began, did you find yourself with more buyer clients, or was it more listings, or what did you? I actually had more listings when I first started. My first closing was a listing that I got. And I was so nervous when I had that listing appointment. I went to the listing appointment knowing that I was up against a few other pretty big names, especially in the city where I'm not even originally from Midland. So I was competing against a few names, and one of them was actually at the time the president of the Midland Board of Realtors.
Oh, wow.
That I was interviewing against. And I ended up winning that listing. And it gave me such a confidence boost because I realized that it's not always about how many awards you've won, or, how many medals or trophies you have, or how many years of experience you really have. It's about being genuine. It's about knowing what you have. Yep. It's about knowing exactly. It's about the heart. It's about knowing, even if I don't have the answer, I said, I have a team of people, and I am not afraid to ask, because I'm going to do the right job for you. I'm going to do the best job for you. And I think that client at the time read my genuineness and eagerness and tenacity right into it, and it worked out for me in my favor. And I really ended up with probably 10 listings in my first 2 years.
That's awesome.
Maybe 3 years, but I had a heavy side of listing than buy side.
I mean, that's impressive.
It was interesting.
But so I'm a transplant, I'll say, as well, to Midland. I am not a Midlander, born and raised. So how did you get to Midland? How'd you get here?
How did I get here?
Yeah.
At the time I met my husband, his family lived here. So I relocated. And I'm the type of person that can really adapt to any situation. So even though I wasn't from here, I made it home. I made friends. I connected with people. I got involved in the community. I, volunteered at my church. I volunteered where I could, and I met people. And that's how real estate works in general, honestly, for your life, is you've got to make sure that you're being intertwined in the community. And I'm sure you do things in the community to be involved. And
yes, and
even though you're not from here, but you still have to.
Well, and you brought a great point to me about a year ago, and I, hey, we're busy, we're doing this, we're doing that, it's life, things are going on, and you made a comment to me, and you guys every week send out to us, and you're part of this committee, and you're sending out this, hey, try these events, go to these social gatherings, and you said something to me that was so important. You said, Rob, go to one a week, meet some people, and you will be amazed with who you actually do know and who knows you, and how you have so much in common. So that was something that really impressive. And so I want to lead to this now with where we're at. So now we're a couple of years down the road with you. You're hammering the real estate. You're doing an awesome job. What is something now that you wish the opposite, that if you could have gone back to year one and now you're in year 9, what's something you're like, okay, I want the opposite. What would have I done sooner to avoid the mistakes that I'm making now?
I think that something that I wish that I would have set for myself is a little bit better boundaries, I guess, is I have a big heart and I understand everyone's situation and I am so sympathetic. And we as realtors get so passionate. We want to just make all the real estate dreams come true for our clients, honestly. And sometimes I would allow the real estate to kind of run my life, and it kind of overstepped a lot of things that I wish I could be like, I wish I would have gone to my, daughter's softball tournament. Like I wish I hadn't prioritized real estate over that. And that's not anything of anyone else's fault. But when you get into this career, it becomes so much of your life, and it intertwines so much into your everyday conversation that sometimes I blurred the lines of like setting it aside and being like, that text didn't have to be answered at my daughter's birthday. You know, that phone call didn't have to be taken. That email didn't have to be sent right then. It could have waited 15 minutes. It could have waited an hour. And so I feel like that's something really important. I hope a lot of young agents develop is the boundaries of like personal life, because if you're in this for the long haul, like I mean, I'm almost a decade into it. When you're in it for the long haul, you can't allow that to be your life every day. You've got to have the balance. So work-life balance is
we talk about like the attrition in a way where there's different statistics coming up. Something I've seen recently is like within 12 months, like 9 out of 10 individuals who get their license practicing real estate, they're out. And I think that some of that could be the opposite about how hard real estate is, how hard you have to work. But my question for you is this. You've been doing this 9 years. You're on top. How do you keep on top?
I would say just maintaining your creativity and your drive. And I think it's important, even no matter what year you're in, is to not compare yourself to others. Don't compare your first 12 months to someone else's 12 months, because real estate is a roller coaster. You're going to have ups and you're going to have downs. And, my year 1 was great, but my year 3 was really rough. And then I can look at other agents in our office who had a rough first year, and years 3, 4, and 5 were wildly successful. And everyone's on their own journey. Everyone's on their own path of it. And if you don't compare yourself to everyone else and you're working on yourself and your own career, and you keep your head down and you keep doing the prospecting and the networking and, really building your business, it doesn't matter where on top is, because your on top is different than my on top.
Correct.
Because my on top is not always dollar bills. My on top is work-life balance and my time. If I can have a successful real estate career and pay my bills and get to see my kids all the time, that's on top for me. I don't need to be the number 1 realtor in Midland Board of Realtors statistics for me to feel like that's my on top.
You got to be number 1 to your clients,
right,
to your family,
and meeting those expectations for your clients. Because if I want to be number 1, but I'm failing half of my clients because I can't keep up, then that's not really number 1. You know what I mean? So staying on top is really individual. And I would say for me, it's making sure that I am keeping that balance so that my clients have a good experience and my kids grow up with the mom that's involved. Like that's very important.
So I gotta bring this up. This is great. So something that you and I have talked about is my wife Sarah and I, we're homeschoolers.
Oh, yeah.
We teach, and then you had to, for some things last year, you dabbled in it a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
So all right. So you got. Let's talk that for a moment.
I got a taste of homeschooling.
I told you this when we got started. Sarah and I have been doing it now. We're going on our 3rd year, which she's the queen.
Mad props, man. I could never do that.
I'm like the substitute. She's the queen at it. She does such a phenomenal job. She's an amazing woman. But what I kind of laughed at is that I told you, I said, I'm telling you, like, you will at least once a week almost like tease or threaten that you're going to send them back to school. And I remember that you came in it was like the first week or so, and you looked at me and you go, Rob, this is, I don't know, Robin. What did you learn from it?
I learned that I didn't have as much patience as I thought I had. I learned so much about my kids, actually, spending time with them. And I learned that they pay attention to me more than I realized. And, during that time of homeschooling, which was only about 7 weeks of homeschooling at the end of last school year, one of the little sheets that they did was at the end of the year, what do you want to be when you grow up? And both of my kids wrote down realtor, which I'm sure all kids who have real estate agent parents probably say that. But then they had to write a why section for my daughter who was at the end of her 3rd grade year. And she wrote down not anything about what normally you would think for little kids is like, oh, they're heroic or they make a lot of money or those kind of things. And she just wrote, because I love my mom. And that really solidified, like, my career isn't overstepping my family life. And it like kind of intertwines. And I learned a lot about patience. And then I learned a lot more about my kids in homeschooling. And that was crazy.
Yeah. And we every family makes a decision for the reasons they do. And that's their choice, and respect whatever decision you make. But that's something that we have realized as parents that doing this homeschool is that it's the amount of time we get to spend with them.
Oh, yeah.
And the amount of time that how we're working with them and how we learn about them. Mm-hmm. And that old phrase that, being apart makes the heart grow fonder, and how I look at it, we're together all the time. I mean, and we tease and we call them our roommates. We joke about this all the time. So we always tease and tell people, our roommates, because, they're kids, they're not like they're doing a bunch of chores, they're not doing this. But I guess I'm saying is that what we found with it is that how much love in this, what they see from us and how we grow with that. Yeah,
and they can see how you handle situations. My kids were able to see when I had a difficult inspection come back, or when I had an offer come in, $20,000 under on my listing, and how I'm able to take a deep breath and manage that as a person. And I'm not saying they don't get those skills in school, but maybe not in the same situation. And them being able to see me overcome difficult situations is really awesome, but it also reminds me that I have to be in control. And they're watching me, they're watching if I lose my cool, or if I take a deep breath and I slow down and I step back and I make a calculated positive change to the day, or if I just blow the whole day because I'm mad, which, let's be honest, sometimes even as adults, we blow the whole day because we're just mad.
Yeah.
And so it was really awesome for them to be able to see me do that and make that connection. And I hope that they remember the 6-7 weeks of it, because I'll never forget that. That was tough.
Well, here's what I'm kind of linking into this, and this is what so we run into a lot of individuals when we're doing open houses.
Oh yeah,
and they have never talked about the process, and we have this beautiful process: 6 steps, 18 moving pieces, home buying, and 6 steps to selling, and I guess my thing with you is I wanted to bring up this because I did an open house right after you one time. And you are, and I tell everybody in the office, she is the queen of open houses. She has this beautiful layout. The music is going, and I'm not going to give away the rest of your hints.
Yeah, don't give all my tips away.
I'm not going to do that. But you started your career and you had listings, you didn't have, but a lot of newer agents, we focused on open houses and in our sphere of influence. Did you have a knack right away when you did open houses that you connected with individuals, or did you have to learn?
A little bit. Honestly, I did open houses on my own listings a lot.
Okay.
Or on listings of Kevin's or Logan's, because I knew Kevin and Logan, so I was able to meet the sellers, and I actually had a lot easier of time making the connections and interacting with the seller before they left the home for the open house than I did with the buyer. And I think that's probably contributed to why I had so many listings, which wasn't even that many, but definitely more listings than buyers in my first few years. And I just had an easier time one-on-one with a seller than I did with a buyer. And I think that helped with my open house skills, is when some of the things that I've taught you is get there a little early, meet the seller, understand the home, understand the home from their perspective. And that helps you as an agent be better when buyers walk in, because you're not stumbling around looking for light switches. The lights are on and you're confident in where you are. And that is a skill that is not something that you just walk in with, but you train it. So after a few reps of an open house, even if they're different houses every single time, you get that rep of meeting a one-on-one person. You break that ice in your own nerves, because you're about to meet 50 more when they come into the open house. You break that nerves of meeting somebody that you don't know. And then you ask them questions, and you see them light up. You see them be like, oh, you want to know about my house? You want to know my favorite part? You want to know what I think everyone's going to love? You want to know, the candle that's burning? Like all the things that makes them excited. And then when you see buyers come in, who again, you don't know, you get to be that for them. You get to break that ice. Like, come on in. This carpet is so soft. Take your shoes off. Put your toes on the carpet. It's cozy. You know what I mean? You break that ice and you build that connection. And you start with that one-on-one with the seller that you don't know. And then it just flows right into all the other strangers that are about to walk in. And it makes it easier to convert those leads and build that genuine relationship right from the time they walk through the door.
So with the buyer and the process, in your opinion, what have you found to be the most difficult part of that 6-step AT moving process?
Honestly, managing their emotions for buyers, because it is so real. It is their money. It is their house. It is their life that's in the balance of whether they're going to move or not move. And sometimes they have to sell their home and then buy, or sometimes they have a lease that's going to end and they have to be out, or they have to renew and they need to know. And that causes a lot of anxiety. And so that's the hardest part for me, is just helping them understand that a lot of things in the real estate, once you're under contract, a lot of things are not something we can control time-wise. We can't control how quickly the appraisal comes back. We can't control how fast underwriting moves. Yeah. And if they're in MSHDA, if they're a first-time home buyer in Michigan and qualify for MSHDA and they're going through the MSHDA process, we can't control how quickly MSHDA is going through their files. And so being able to just be there and connect with them, like, listen, I get it. When your life sucks, my life sucks. You know, when you're stressed, I'm stressed. Yes. I want this too. I feel it. And just being able to manage that, I find to be sometimes pretty hard, because like I said, I'm a very empathetic person and passionate, and I try to understand everyone's situation and really put myself in their shoes. And so when their life sucks, my life really does suck. I don't want anyone to have a hard time.
See, and I would agree with you. And I think that what we always talk about, we train on, is that deal momentum. And our goal is that we want the buyer, in this situation, we want the buyer to go through this, but they're informed and confident, and they're so comfortable with the process. And once again, we're flying that plane, we're driving the bus, and we're working on the other side, because when we get that buyer seller at the table, we want it to be the joke of the key exchange. And don't worry, you know, that lock's a little funny and you have to do this.
Yeah. And you want the high fives. And Trent Gagnow actually just posted a closing photo yesterday. I don't know if you saw it, but he was jumping with his clients like midair in the photo. And I'm like, that's the kind of closing you want.
Yes.
To be jumping for joy, like in the photo. That's a good closing. That's a happy transaction, happy client, happy agent, all around.
Yeah. And that's what we love.
Yeah.
We want humans over houses.
Oh, absolutely.
Chat about it all the time. Well, let's go to the other side of this. Now you're selling. The whole situation's a little bit different. You're trying to work with your seller that you're listing their home. You're walking through the home. You've done your market analysis. You've got everything. And you sit down and they go, I want this number. And in front of you, you have paperwork, and we've done the analysis, and it's this number. And you're off. You're far off.
Am I low?
Oh, you're low.
Oh, no.
Of course.
That's always the worst situation.
Yeah, if you're high, we joked about this the other day. I mean, being wrong a lot of times, it is okay in these situations. But in this one, how are you going to handle? So I'll give you an example, help you a little bit. You go over, you look at it, you're at about 310, and they said, hey, I want to get 350. I want to be at 350. Walk through that conversation with me.
Yeah, absolutely. So if I had a seller that wanted 350 and my comps are telling me it's 310, I would have a discussion first and foremost about, are they talking about the sales price on a purchase agreement? Or are they talking about a list price? And if they're talking about listing at 350, I would pull my comps out and say, this is how I'm calculating this. And this is how I'm getting to that. I would love to understand, because I want to list it for 350. I want you to get 350. Tell me how we can get there. Can you help me identify in these comps that are the most recent, most comparable comps to your house, how we can manipulate the numbers? How can we get there? And usually they can't. And I usually explain that it can be emotional. Sometimes people just are emotionally attached, and that's okay because it's their home. Yeah. But emotional value doesn't translate into dollars. It just doesn't. You know, your Christmas memories in the living room don't make $20,000 on their list price. It just doesn't. No. You know, and even agree. Things that are updated on the home sometimes don't translate into list price. You can have a brand new roof that you spent $30,000 on, And that's great. It's going to add value for sure. But it might not be $30,000 in value. It might only be 15. It might only be 20. It might only be 25. You just have to know the market, and explaining to clients that I'm the professional and this is what I do, and that is not a belittling thing. But I'm very confident in my job. I'm very confident in what I do. I'm very comfortable in my market analysis because I can explain and identify every single pinpoint in my comps. And I ask them for help because it's a team thing. It's your house that's up for sale, and I want you to get 350. And sometimes the conversation goes, hey, I want you to get 350. So let's list it at 320. Let's list it at 325 because my comps are telling me your house is actually worth 330 to 340. Let's list it at 325. Let's get you that 350.
So you're and that's something that you bookend, right? So you have the market analysis is showing this. Competitor sold for that. You're checking 30, 60 days back. This is what you have. We arrive on scene, the home, and we're looking at it. We're doing our plus and minuses. And thank you, Tim Sodini, for all the stuff you've done with us with the appraisal method and everything for helping us.
Big thanks.
Yes. But I guess what we see a lot of times is that the bookends. And we always try to explain to them that on the low side, you tend to have buyer pool increases. If you're on the higher side of that bookend, you have less buyers. The tendency that we can see statistically come out over and over is that if you tend to start on the lower side of that bookend, then you're creating almost that frenzy with a multiple buyer situation, multiple offer, and you tend to end up at a number that is more than when you started higher, and then you end up having to do these price reductions and things of the sort. So yeah, I get where you're coming from with this, and remember, and we're always battling to do this, and we want what's best for the client.
Yeah.
And but there are times where we've been wrong too, right? Something you can kind of keep in your head about some of that one time where you're like, man, this is where I'm seeing it at, this is where I'm seeing it at. That number happened, and then all of a sudden you were off.
Yeah. Are you talking about being listing too high, or are you talking about thinking that you were going to list too high and it actually sold? Because both situations have happened to me. But a couple of years ago, I had listed a property actually way up in West Branch on M55. And when I was running the comps, I was coming out high end 155 on the listing sales price. Low end, probably like 140, 145. That was my comfortable bookends. And my seller at the time, who was a repeat client, we had worked together before, he said point blank, he was like, Eryn, I've put too much into this house. I have done updates. I can't list it for less than 165. And that's 10K over what my top of my range was. And I had to sit back and think, this repeat client, am I going to lose a client or offend a client over a number? Or can I set him up with his expectations of navigating, let's list high, let's reevaluate in 7 days. Maybe we don't have to reevaluate. Give him the shot, Okay, we're going to list 10K high. I don't really want to, and I made that very clear. We discussed where my numbers were, but because he is a client, I'm not going to lose a listing over it. But we're going to set the stage of, hey, we're going to roll out at 165. In 7 days, we're going to look back. If we don't have 10 showings in 7 days, we're going to talk about a price reduction, and we'll figure out where we need to fall at that point. I will host an open house. I'll make sure that I give it just as much marketing, even though my numbers aren't coming out where your feelings are. But that's okay. And I ended up selling it for 165. Someone came through the open house, wrote an offer, and I felt so proud that I didn't make my client feel bad about that, because I was wrong. My high end was 155 and he wanted to list at 165, and I thank the Lord I went with it, and I did sell it for 165 like 3 days on market.
Well, statistically, I always say this, but that's how we do things, is analytics. That's the professional way. We're not throwing a dart at a board and saying, oh yeah, that's 380.
You're not gut feeling it.
No.
You can't just look at a house and have a gut feeling.
It's
not going to be nearly as accurate. And honestly, when clients hire you as an agent, they pay you, and they should pay you for doing the job the right way and being able to explain things the right way. And if I just said, oh, well, it felt right. I mean, could you imagine a doctor walking in and being like, you probably have cancer because it feels right.
Yeah.
I'm not going to run any tests. I'm not going to check your blood.
That
or
gallbladder?
Right.
Oh, that gallbladder.
We'll just chop it right out. It just feels right, and we're professionals. And so our opinion is important, and our opinion needs to be backed by facts and statistics and analytics, and we should be able to explain things like that. So
the other side of this with this and why I'm mentioning is that there is value, and nobody truly knows the price or value of real estate. You just don't, because it's there.
It's subjective. Every person's opinion. I can have two buyers go to the same home. One could absolutely love it, and one could think that it was not at all good. And it's an opinion, because what people want in a home is individual. I personally want a basement. Somebody else might be like, I never want a basement because I went through the 2020 flood, and that is scary for me. And so that doesn't make a house with a basement more or less valuable. It's just different opinions of value, different opinions of what's important in a home.
Well, think about like with buyers and how, we chat with them. Say we meet them open houses, the referrals or whatever. And we start talking with buyers or the clients, and we start talking about what they like, dislike. And as you're going through, that even changes. And so what we always talk about in our steps and our process is that as we search, then we narrow, and we're going to make a decision. Can you think any time on top of your head where the narrow just blew your mind, where you've been looking, and then you get to a point where that's not what they want at all? And now that search starts again with a whole different style of home.
Sometimes it's not it's not that they don't want that. Sometimes it's that they can't get it. That their wants don't match up to their needs and what's realistic. I recently, earlier this year, had a client who started out and they told me, we have to have 3 beds. I want 2 bathrooms. My max budget is $150 in the city of Midland with a fenced-in backyard. And I told them at the buyer's consult, I said, that is going to be a tough call. That is a tough call. 3-2 with a fenced-in backyard, updated, preferably a ranch with a fenced-in backyard at $150. I set the expectation of, we're going to look. Let me tell you, I will search, I will hunt, I will find it for you if it's out there. And 3 months in, they said, we could probably just do a 2-1.
Yeah.
And I about choked, because I was like, we're going from a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom home to a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom home. Those are very different families that are looking at those types of homes. And they ended up finding a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom ranch.
See, and that happens, and part of me, it feels, I feel kind of bad, like, okay, how, and something else that we do as modern agent is that we're always assessing. And I'm looking back and I'm going, what could have I done to help them, kind of narrow sooner? And sometimes it just takes a bunch of homes. Sometimes it takes a home. Sometimes it takes a relative or a friend mentioning something. Sometimes it just happens. But so I want to scoot back to something. And we were talking about the sellers again. And with somebody selling a home. And I guess what I wanted to bring up with you currently with what's going on right now, something that we hear is, as we're at a listing appointment, well, what else can I do? And you touched on this. What else can I do to get more out of my house? What are some examples you have that say, and let's paint this picture for you. They have $10,000 to spend to update or to do some things to their home to make it more appealing. What are some things you do?
First and foremost, I usually recommend that they just clean. I know that sounds really basic, because most people don't think they're going to list their house dirty, but decluttering is really what I mean. Rent a storage unit for a month. And just box up all the stuff that you're not going to use, and it's cutesy and it's decorative, or it's just stuff you've had around for a while, and get it out of the house. Because when clients come in and potential buyers look at your home, they want to see a clean slate. With that $10,000, I usually say, if there's any like major material defects that need to be fixed, if there's a window that's broken, if there's a leak somewhere, just go ahead and fix that.
Okay.
If there's none of that and you cleaned, that's when you start looking at curb appeal, eye appeal. I'm talking like clean, neutral colors in the bedrooms. Let's not have a bright pink bedroom with stickers all over it. If you have the funds to paint it, just paint it. Curb appeal as far as like do some landscaping, basic yard work, just minor things. It's not always I need to spend $10,000 to get my house ready. Sometimes it's just list it and be very conscious of the list price to what the value is when you're home. You know, if you know that you haven't put $10,000 in it, we're not bumping the list price up $10,000. We're just not going to do that if the value isn't there. So
because you're managing expectations once again.
A lot of the career is analyzing the client, what their expectations are, and being able to make sure that you can either meet them or help them manage it and help them understand that sometimes their expectations might be a little high, but that's okay because they're not a realtor. That's my job, is to tell them, hey, your expectations are a little high. Or if their expectations are low and you can be like, hey, my comps came up $25,000 higher than what you were telling me you wanted for your house. I get to wear the cape. I get to look like a superhero, and I want to look like a superhero.
Yes.
And so you get to do that for your clients and say, hey, we're going to actually list 15 higher than what you said, and then hopefully get that 25. Let's get the full 25.
Have you had, this is kind of because I just had one of these, but have you had a kind of like a sense of a sleepless night if something's not going, like a listing or a buy is not going as well? Have you had a kind of a sleepless or a night where you went to bed late because you were like, man, you're thinking about it, you wake up early and it's on your mind again? Have you had one of those?
More than one.
Okay.
And a lot of the times when I have those sleepless nights are things that it's when it's out of my control. It's when I've listed a property, I ran all the comps, the numbers are right, and the house is just not selling.
Not there.
And the feedback is vague, and they don't really give me a reason to say that the price is wrong. It's, oh, the trees are too close to the house. Or I wish the floor plan was open. So it's nothing that I can fix, and there's nothing I can take to my seller to say, hey, we're wrong on the price, but now we have to drop the price because nobody wants to buy it at this price. And so those are the situations where I can't control anything, and it's hard for me to take the vagueness and try and turn it into a conversation with my seller and make it make sense, other than, hey, we've been on the market for a while, we need a price drop. And I feel like that is an okay thing to say. A lot of clients say that, but I like to have more than that. I like to come with value and statistics and like, hey, we had 20 showings and they all said we're too high, so we need to drop the price. Not, we had 20 showings, only 2 of them said we were too high, the rest of them loved the price, and there was something else wrong with the home. That makes it hard for me to do my job and go get that price reduction for the seller, because the seller wants to sell.
Yeah.
It's hard all around.
Well, you nailed something with this, and this is something that we once again we talk about a lot. Something if people don't know about Modern Realty is we're training all the time.
Oh yeah.
And the thing I love about Logan is that he loves real estate, and he wants to make it the thing, and it's not some secret squirrel club. Like he wants it where we're all doing an awesome job. We're doing what's best for our clients. We love each other. We're just making it the best we can for our clients. But feedback, I want to ask you about that, because feedback is something when you have a listing or the buyer, that is a touchy and difficult kind of concept because there's this boundary. And there's hey, you want, say you show a home and your client just says, I despise this home. I don't like it. It's overpriced. It's tough.
If I had a buyer that said, I don't like this home, it's gross, it's not something I'd ever buy, and it's overpriced, my feedback in the showing time form would specifically say, thank you so much for letting me tour your home. I personally adored the yard or the kitchen or whatever. I would give my own opinion because I'm not going to offend, and I would compliment sandwich it. It just wasn't right for this buyer. They didn't feel like the price was on point. But thank you again so much for letting us show. Best of luck with your sale. Compliment sandwich it and give the feedback. The very real feedback from the buyer was take out all the emotional stuff of the house is gross, right? The reality is they don't think that the value is there. So say that.
Yeah.
And you can add in your own opinion, or you can leave it out if you really don't like the home either. I always try to find something about every house that I'm like, oh, I really thought the mantle was cute, or your Christmas tree with the decorations, adored that. Just try to give something, because the people that are reading it on the other side are real people too.
Yeah, I agree.
And they might know which agent submitted which feedback. And if they see Eryn Travis and they see some trash feedback, that's my reputation to a stranger, to another person's client has been tainted because I just let my thumbs fly and I didn't reel it in and say, hey, this is someone's home. Let's be a little sensitive to somebody's house.
That's something that you have to manage on both sides, because sometimes you do get those with the listing, and it depends on the setup, because with the showing time setup, it could be where it automatically goes to them, or that I always review it and then send.
Same.
But it's tough. And even it's your listing. So you've taken it on like your home, like you love it, and you hear that. It's like a dagger when you get something like that. And you got to keep in perspective that it's what somebody thought, and it's hurtful.
And it's one person's opinion.
Yes.
Sometimes I tell my sellers when they've been on the market for a long time, we only need one buyer that loves it.
Yes.
So we've had 9 that don't. That's okay.
Yeah.
We'll find the one. It might be in 9 more, or it could be the very next one. Let's not give up just because it's hard. There is a buyer out there somewhere, whether it's at this price point or a different price point. There's a buyer somewhere that's going to love this cute, adorable home, and we only need one. We don't need 50 fighting over it. We only need one to sell a house.
Yep. One buyer.
One buyer will sell a house. You don't need 50 fighting.
And it's what you tell your buyers. We just need that home to pop up. We don't need 80 homes to pop up.
It goes both ways, right?
We just need that home to pop up. So I got a last question I have for you. Where do you see yourself in realty in the next 5 years? Where are you going to be? What are you going to do?
I am eager in 2025 to start taking my broker license. You can technically take it when you've been a real estate agent for, I believe, 3 years. Okay. I'm in year 9, so I'm a little late to the game, but I just feel like I've been comfortable for a long time in my career, and I would like to level up. I don't know really where getting my broker license will necessarily take me, but maybe I'll move away from Midland and open a new brokerage of Modern Realty.
Absolutely.
You never know. You can't do that if you don't have a broker license.
No.
So, I mean, you never know. And just having that extra layer of knowledge also will help my clients. So the next 5 years, I want to get my broker license and just continue to be happy and serve my clients and learn more, grow more, help my fellow agents at Modern, and just continue.
Well, and I want to tell you, we appreciate you there. And if you didn't know this, we adore you. What other 53 of us now, plus you, because we have 54 now, is it?
I think 54, yeah.
Okay. And we appreciate you and everything you do. And you are just a joy to be around. And I'm speaking for everybody there, appreciate.
Maybe you shouldn't. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
You shouldn't talk for everyone. No, yeah. Okay. I love the
Glenn.
company.
We'll talk for everybody except Glenn. Glenn, sorry,
Glenn's
buddy.
great.
He could,
No, but I love the company, and they joke sometimes that I bleed orange because I just love.
You do.
I love the company so much, and I would do anything for any agent. Call me day or night. I would help you. I would give you my advice or my opinion on situations without hesitation. So.
Yeah. Well, folks, that wraps up our episode today of the Modern Agent Podcast, and just want to thank you again for listening, and I want to thank Miss Eryn for coming on and having this discussion with us. And just once again, you're amazing. I love your stories, the knowledge you shared. Just really appreciate you being here today.
Thank you. I really appreciated your insight too.
All right. Well,
thank you, guys.
You have a great one. Take care. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Modern Agent Podcast. Please follow at Modern Realty Midland on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And if you need to buy or sell a house, please reach out to Modern Realty by going to www.modernrealty.us. Modern Realty, your home, our focus.